When a big company goes under, it always feels so sudden, right? Like a total shock. But what if it isn't an accident at all? What if it's more like a disease, something you can actually diagnose with a path you can see coming?
I mean, think about it for a second. That favorite local spot you had, or maybe a brand you grew up with, and then one day, poof, they're just gone. It always seems to happen overnight, and it leaves everyone scrambling, wondering what on earth went wrong.
But here's the thing. It's almost never that sudden. The reality is that corporate failure is more like a process. It's an illness, really, something we can call industrial sickness. And today we're going to put on our doctor's coats and we're going to diagnose this thing from the very first symptoms all the way to the unfortunate end. So let's get started. All right, first things first. Before you can treat any illness, you've got to know what you're dealing with. So what exactly makes a company sick?
Well, it's interesting because the definition of a sick company, it kind of changes depending on who you ask. For you and me, a layman, it's just a company that's obviously not doing well. But if you're an investor, a sick company is one that's stopped paying out dividends. And for a banker, it all comes down to the cash. A company is sick if it's just consistently losing money, month after month.
Now, those perspectives are all valid, for sure. But there is a formal, really technical definition. And this is the key takeaway. A company is officially considered sick when its total losses, we're talking accumulated losses here, are bigger than its entire net worth. Basically, it's lost more money than it's even worth. It's kind of in a state of financial self-destruction.
Okay, so just like any real illness, industrial sickness doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. There are always warning signs. Symptoms that show up way before the final collapse. So let's check the vitals.
The most obvious symptoms, of course, are the financial ones. These are the big red flags you'd see on a balance sheet. First, the company is just constantly losing money. Then, it starts having trouble paying its day-to-day bills, things like payroll or rent. That's what we call a liquidity problem. And then, it starts defaulting on its loans. Honestly, this is the financial version of running a high fever that just won't break.
Then you've got the operational symptoms. These are the more, physical signs of sickness. The quality of their products might start to tank, which means more customers are sending stuff back. Their factories aren't running at full steam, and their tech is getting seriously outdated. The company just isn't making things as well as it used to. And this one is so important. You can often see the sickness in the people. Your best employees, the real talent, they start heading for the exits. Maybe all the decisions start coming from one person, a sort of one-man rule where no one else's opinion matters. And the whole relationship between management and the workers just goes sour. A company's human health is a massive, massive indicator of its overall condition.
Okay, so we've spotted the symptoms. Now comes the real diagnosis. What's actually causing this sickness? And usually the causes fall into two big buckets: problems that come from the inside and problems that come from the outside.
So, internal causes. These are all the things that management can actually control. You can think of them like self-inflicted wounds, right? Caused by bad decisions. Then you have external causes. These are things totally outside of their control. These are more like environmental hazards that can make any company sick, even a really well-run one.
So let's look inside the company first. These internal causes are so often just rooted in bad management. We're talking about everything from poor planning and totally flawed production policies to just plain bad marketing. But, one of the biggest ones is terrible financial control, like when money gets siphoned away from the main business. These are the kinds of problems that truly start at home.
But sometimes the illness really does come from the outside. A massive market recession can just obliterate demand. Or the government suddenly changes the rules on taxes or licensing, and everything gets turned upside down overnight. It could even be a shortage of raw materials, or just a big shift in what customers want. All these things can put incredible pressure on a company, pushing it towards sickness.
So how does a company actually get to this point? It's almost never one single thing. It's usually a slow, gradual decline, a downward spiral that tends to happen in 4 pretty distinct stages.
Okay, so it all starts at stage 1, when the company is healthy, everything's normal, profits are stable, but then comes stage 2, where things start to slip. Profits begin to dip, those first warning signs we talked about start to pop up. It's like a kind of corporate fatigue is setting in. By stage 3, the illness is what they call incipient. Now the company is actively losing cash, and its financial foundation is starting to crack. And if nothing changes, it hits stage 4, the final sickness. At this point, all the indicators are negative. Survival is going to require something like intensive care, a major rehabilitation, if it's even possible.
Right about now, you might be thinking, okay, this is pretty rough for the company, but why should I care?
Well, the thing is, a sick company doesn't exist in a bubble. Its illness spreads. It creates a huge ripple effect that ends up touching all of us.
And this chart really shows you just how widespread the pain is. The biggest hit, 40%, goes to the employees, of course. They're facing layoffs, low morale, a ton of uncertainty. But look at this. Banks and financial institutions lose money, the government loses out on tax revenue, and investors watch their savings just vanish. And beyond that, you've got all the suppliers who depended on that company and all the wasted resources. A single sick company can literally infect an entire economic ecosystem. So, that leaves us with this final thought. Industrial sickness isn't just a business school problem, it's a societal one. It's about our collective health. So when we see a company fail, maybe the question we should be asking isn't just what went wrong inside that company, but also what are the conditions in our wider economy that allowed this disease to take hold and spread in the first place?